Good afternoon. Today's date is January 1st, 2025. Happy New Year, by the way. Time is 1 p.m. Now, several things I want to go over today. Number one is Jessica Denson's newest video is out, and in this video she talks about 14th Now, which is the movement that's going to take place on the National Mall, or actually down around the Capitol area, on between January 3rd and January 5th. I will put the link for that website where you can register in the comments. I also will put the link for Jessica's newest video. So this way, because on this video, she gives instructions on what everyone needs to do in order to participate, if they're going to participate, and how they can be helpful with that. So that's that. Okay, I did want to touch a little bit on the 14th Amendment, because I know there's some shades of gray in there where people say, well, okay, fine, this might be self-executing, it might be in the Constitution, but how does it get from here to there? Now, at the end of this section here, I'm going to include a video which breaks it down. I sort of caught it on YouTube, and I'm going to put the creator in there as well, as I usually do. I'm not taking credit for it at all. I wish it were my accomplishment, but it actually isn't. It belongs to somebody else. But I will put their information in there. But it breaks it down in very simple forms as to, we already know pretty much what it is, but it breaks it down as to how does it get from here to there. Okay, it's amendment in the Constitution, but what needs to be done in order for it to be enforced in Congress. And just to let you know, just off the top of my head, the way that it goes is that you need 1/5 or 20% of the Congress as a whole. Now, when people talk about Congress, some people know this, some people don't. Congress actually constitutes two bodies. You have the Senate and the House of Representatives. Both of those together are Congress. Okay. Some people mistake just the House of Representatives as Congress. No, but it's actually both bodies together. So now it takes again 20% of the of Congress in order to bring up bring the issue up. Okay, and then it takes a majority, supposedly a majority of Congress, which is a little bit over 50%, in order to sustain the motion and disqualify him. Now, the issue that we have is this. We have a new Congress going to be sworn in on January 3rd. As most people know, they have a very good advantage in the Senate. I believe it's 52 to 48, something like that. It may change one way or the other. And in the House, I believe it's 217, the last I looked, to 215. Now, of course, that fluctuates as well. They need at least 218. So most likely it'll be somewhere around those ballparks. But it's just a couple of representatives shy. But either way, the Republicans have control of the House and the Senate when it comes January 3rd. The question is, will any or all Democrats vote to sustain this? Because you'll need all of them to do it. And then you'll need a few Republicans on top of that in order to sustain it for the disqualification, to maintain the disqualification. So that's what we're looking at. We are under the impression it is self-executing, but there has to be a method for it to execute, and that's the method. So again, 20% of the Congress in order to bring it up, and then at least over 50% of the Congress as a whole to sustain that, and of course enforce that disqualification. Now, people say, well, what about the 2/3? Well, 2/3 is a lot more. That's to remove the disqualification. Okay, and that's substantially more than 50%. So that's where that goes. But in order to remove the disqualification, yes, you have to have at least 2/3 of the Congress in order to remove it. That's not going to happen. The question is, will all the Democrats vote to sustain it, and with the help of a few Republicans in order for that to be enacted. Now, don't be too disheartened, because then we still have what we talked about yesterday, which is the Executive Order 13848, election interference. So that's going on in the background. So there's many irons in the fire. But as far as looking at the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, that's going to take a little bit more than what the Democrats have in their arsenal. They all have to be in on it, every single one, and then you've got to get a couple of people from the Republican side to join in order to sustain and to disqualify this man in Congress. So I just want to let you know that. So those are the milestones that we have to face. Now, of course, the gentleman that whoever does this video that I'm going to show next on YouTube explains that very well. So hopefully you guys will get an idea. And I just wanted to leave that with you today, because I know some people are saying, well, how does it go from here to there? And there are shades of gray, and I really don't understand. But again, go to Jessica's podcast, listen to that. She'll give instructions for people who want to participate. And even if they can't be there, how can they help out and contribute as well? I don't know if I'll be able to be there all 3 days, which would be the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. But I'm going to make it at least one day. So there's that. Okay. So if anybody's in questions, put them in the comments. For the people who grossly disagree with this and want to make silly comments, save them, because I will block you. So if you have something constructive to say, come out and say it. But if you're going to be silly about it and have some off-the-wall comments, then look forward to being blocked. But do repost this, and I will catch you guys a little bit later on, if not today, whenever I got some more information to relay. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks for joining me today. Let me ask you something. Did you know there's a provision in the Constitution that could actually bar a person from becoming president? Sounds like a plot twist, right? Well, it's true, and it's called Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Lately, there's been a lot of discussion around whether Congress could use this clause to stop Donald Trump from taking office again. It's a fascinating and complex situation that's raising a ton of questions, not just about legal rules, but about the very framework of democracy. Now, what does this really mean? Today, I want to walk you through what Section 3 is all about, the arguments for and against using it, and whether Congress could realistically take such a step. By the end of this discussion, you'll have a clearer picture of the facts and what's at stake. So, let's jump in and explore this. First, let's get into what Section 3 of the 14th Amendment actually says. It was written after the Civil War and was designed to stop people who engaged in rebellion or insurrection against the United States from holding public office. This means that if someone took an oath to uphold the Constitution, but then participated in actions like insurrection or gave support to enemies of the country, they're disqualified from office, unless Congress removes this disqualification with a 2/3 vote. Sounds straightforward, right? But as with many things in law, the devil is in the details. So then, how does this apply to Trump? Well, advocates for using this clause against him argue that his actions surrounding the January 6th Capitol riot meet the criteria for disqualification. They point to his impeachment for incitement of insurrection and the findings from various investigations, including the House Select Committee's inquiry into the events of that day. According to these arguments, Trump's behavior, like pressuring Mike Pence to overturn the election results and allegedly fueling the crowd's anger, crossed a constitutional line. But here's the thing, the legal path isn't so simple. First off, Trump was acquitted in his impeachment trial because the Senate didn't reach the 2/3 majority needed to convict him. This leaves his status somewhat unresolved. Then, there's the question of whether Section 3 is self-executing. Some experts argue that it applies automatically, while others believe Congress needs to pass specific legislation to enforce it. The Supreme Court has also weighed in, saying that individual states can't unilaterally disqualify federal candidates, but it hasn't definitively ruled on whether Congress can act under this clause. Now, you might be wondering, could Congress actually block Trump? Technically, yes, but it would require some very specific steps. Under the Electoral Count Act, lawmakers can object to counting certain electoral votes if they believe they're not regularly given. This could include votes for a candidate deemed constitutionally disqualified. But here's the catch. It would take a majority vote in both the House and Senate to uphold such an objection. Considering the political makeup of Congress, that's a tall order. On top of that, there's the political reality to consider. Many Republicans have already expressed strong opposition to any effort to disqualify Trump, arguing that it would undermine the will of the voters. Critics also say that trying to block Trump could backfire by fueling claims of election interference or even deepening political divisions. On the flip side, supporters of this strategy argue that failing to act could set a dangerous precedent, signaling that insurrectionist behavior goes unpunished. And what about Trump's response? As you might expect, he and his allies strongly reject these efforts, calling them partisan attacks. They argue that the legal claims are flimsy and that any attempt to block him would be an abuse of power. And let's not forget, Trump's victory in the 2024 election adds even more weight to this debate. So, where does this leave us? For now, the likelihood of Congress taking action seems slim, but the conversation is far from over. The real question is what this controversy means for our democracy. Is this about holding people accountable to the Constitution, or is it about political maneuvering? And how do we balance these concerns without tearing the country further apart? It's a lot to think about, isn't it?